Hello, everybody. This is Catholic Dad, episode number 331. Have hard conversations with your kids. So, what brings this up with me today? And it was kind of a conversation I was having with my wife. I tend to want the kids to be exposed to a whole bunch of stuff early on in life. And she tends to want to protect them, protect their innocence, and not let them see evil. This is the dynamic of the world, by the way, that's why you need a mother and a father. The mother loves the child more than anybody in the entire world. Okay, nobody loves a child as much as a mother, and she wants to protect that child from every little aggression, everything, any extrinsic of the world that might attack that child and corrupt that child. She's going to protect that child. Now, if that becomes unmitigated, that's called a devouring mother. Sigmund Freud talked about this. The devouring mother is probably the only thing that Sigmund Freud genuinely got correct. But if you overmother a child and overprotect a child, you're actually going to weaken the child. Now, the father, on the other hand, will essentially, if there's nothing wrong with the child, like falls down, cuts himself, bleeds, go with it. I don't really care. You toughen up, you rub some dirt in it, put some spit on it, but you fall down and you get hurt. Dads should not be particularly concerned. The dad's job is to fortify the children for the world once the mother is no longer influential in the child's life. The mother is to protect the child to get him up to, the age of majority. And so you need both dynamics, one for the survival of the child and one to actually toughen the child up so when they finally see genuine difficulty and malevolence in the world, that they're going to be able to be fortified against the ills of the world and actually go and become a warrior for Christ, essentially. And so you need both parents. They're necessary for sure. But so I went to an Abby Johnson talk last night. This is about abortion. Abby Johnson is one of the greatest pro-life speakers in the history of mankind. She was involved in 22,000 abortions with Planned Parenthood. And one day she had a conversion in Christ, and she's in the Roman Catholic Church now. But I actually went up to her and I asked her and I said, hey, Abby, this is really, you grew up in this evangelical family, and yet you still fell into the evils of abortion. How did that happen? And she said her parents didn't really speak much about the ills of the world. They didn't talk about the moral things. She thought her parents essentially said, you go live a sacramental married life, okay? You go live a married life and everything will fall into place. And that is not true. You have to be introduced to the evils of the world in the household first. And so my wife and I, we watched Unplanned, the movie, the other day. Unplanned, the movie is a movie about Abby Johnson's life and what converted her mind to being pro-life. And there's a couple scenes in there that are kind of hard to watch. Number one, she's actually she actually had 2 termination of pregnancies. Abby Johnson did, and one of which she got really violently ill and she was bleeding a lot. And so she's bleeding. There's blood all over the floor and she's violently ill. And then another one was when she was working at Planned Parenthood, she held the ultrasound probe during an abortion, and it was a pretty intense scene, I must say. But there's a little bit of blood, a little bit of gore, and like my wife's like, well, you don't let the little kids watch this, and I'm like, you do let the little kids watch this, and so it's kind of a little bit of a battle. But all that being said is my children know what abortion is and they know it's wrong. And we have these conversations at a very early age with them. If they have any questions about abortion, I'm answering the questions. We're not covering things up so we don't have to have difficult conversations in the world difficult conversations in my house. Because the evils of the world, the abortions of the world, or, the contraceptions of the world, or, like alternative lifestyles and transgenderism and, sodomy and whatever else, if the child asks the question, you have to answer it. Because if they get their influence from their parents, they're going to be much more fortified for the world. Because imagine a child like this. You raise this child in a bubble where they never actually get talked to about sodomy, contraception, transgenderism, abortion, you name it. And then they go into this world and they grow up. And the first time they ever get introduced to it is by a very reasonable person that they consider a friend. Right? Well, my friend does it. Why, this is a good person, and therefore it can't be as evil as like I might think in my own mind. But if they go into the growing up stage knowing early on that it is an evil of the world, when it gets introduced to them, they're going to be much more fortified, much more spiritually aware in their own mind about not to partake and participate in such, sin, essentially. So, well, anyway, I would encourage you, they have the movie Unplanned, watch it. You can get it on Netflix or something like that. But watch the movie, and if you have a 3-year-old in the house, watch the movie with the 3-year-old. If you have a 5-year-old, watch the movie with the 5-year-old. It is uncomfortable in certain points, But it's not gratuitous, for sure not. It's not going to offend the modesty of a child. The child will learn from it, and they're going to ask questions. What happened to her? What happened to her mommy? What happened to her daddy? And then you can explain. And a little story for you before I take off. We had some friends' kids over once, and they were playing baseball. Okay, and I was watching from the porch, just watching the kids throw the ball and hit it. And one of the neighbor kids were, they say, they weren't hitting particularly well. And so one of my kids offered, they said, hey, let's play Obama ball. Let's pretend the ball is Obama's head. I'm like, oh no, here it goes. The neighbor's going to hear what my political beliefs are. Well, anyway, and so they said, well, why would I want to hit Obama's head? That's what the kids said. And my kids were like, because he wants to kill babies. He believes in abortion. And then the kid says, and these are little kids playing. I mean, one of them was probably 7, one's 9, maybe there's a 5-year-old in there. And then the kid and his sister who came over said, why would you ever want to kill a baby? And then my kids were like, we don't know. Why would you want to kill a baby? And watch these little kids talk about it. My kids have obviously been introduced to abortion from a very early age, and they know it's wrong. And then they went out and evangelized these other little kids who may or may not have heard of it before, obviously. And they're like, why? I can't believe anybody would ever kill a baby. And well, anyway, that's how the light of the world gets spread, is that through the innocence of childhood, through being well-formed as children. So one day you become an adult. And when Abby Johnson got tricked into the abortion industry because she wasn't knowledgeable about it, essentially meant her formation was kind of poor as she was growing up. She didn't have a good solid formation that would fortify her against sin in the world. She wasn't fortified. And so therefore, she encouraged it last night. I encourage it now. If your children need to hear about what really exists in the world at the dinner table, and oh, by the way, don't sit there and try to make this all age appropriate. If you're a big family and you want to teach your kids right, you tell everybody throughout their entire lives what is expected of them, what sin is, and how they're going to actually remain in a sacramental relationship with the church. And if they hear that, I bet you they're going to be more well-formed than if you just kind of bubble them up and don't ever want to offend the modesty of a child. Well, anyway, this is Catholic Dad making you think about it. Please like or subscribe, get the Mass and pray the daily rosary, and become a truth speaker, particularly with your children. God bless you all. Take care. Live a sacramental life.